This is a request that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, has made to this judge. He is saying essentially that there needs by 1 p.m. local time tomorrow to be an emergency injunction which will stop the National Guard from doing anything beyond a very limited role.
LA protests, they are reaching further afield, of course, and the war of words between Donald Trump, between the California governor Gavin Newsom and the LA mayor Karen Bass is increasing, as are the actions of some of those people as well, as we go backwards and forwards on this. Let's just talk about the latest line, and then we'll just go over what we've been hearing from Donald Trump today in summary. So as we understand it, as is being reported now widely on American networks, the state of California, its attorneys, have asked a federal judge for an emergency order that would temporarily stop Donald Trump's administration from using members of the state's National Guard to enforce law in the state. In other words, also by including including assisting federal officials with immigration enforcement. So the National Guard, there's thousands in LA at the moment, 2,000 or so, cannot help ICE, the immigration enforcement body, with their work. That is the order that the state of California is currently seeking, as I understand it. Can you confirm that?
Yes, absolutely. So this is a request that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, has made to this judge. He is saying essentially that there needs by 1 p.m. local time tomorrow to be an emergency injunction which will stop the National Guard from doing anything beyond a very limited role. By that, he means that he wants them to stick to defending federal property, like the courthouses, like the detention center. He said that the federal antagonization of the situation has caused real and irreparable damage to the city of Los Angeles. He is very concerned with this idea that Donald Trump could invoke the Insurrection Act, which would then be a significant escalation, of course, and that would mean that that the National Guard and that the Marines can actually start carrying out the work which is normally done by state and local authorities.
Yeah, so this does include the US Marines as well, temporary restraining order blocking the Trump administration deploying both the state National Guard forces and the US Marines to Los Angeles amid mass protests over sweeping federal immigration enforcement efforts. There was a request filed in the same federal lawsuit yesterday, which they alleged Donald Trump had exceeded his authority and violated the US Constitution by sending military forces. The Marines are in, or due to be in Los Angeles, of course, into the city without the request or approval of the state governor or local officials, which is where the insurrection issue comes into play, because Donald Trump can argue, or is trying to argue, that under that act he is operating within reason. At a press conference earlier, Donald Trump claimed the state of California was under siege.
All I want is safety. I just want a safe area. Los Angeles was under siege until we got there. The police were unable to handle it. You can speak to the chief. He said it on television 3 nights ago. He said, this is more than we can handle. They said that. And the LA police, I know a lot of the police in LA, they're great people, but they're given instructions not to do this, not to do that. But in this case, they were trying their best. They were not able to handle it. It was out of control.
Donald Trump speaking there. He did then go on to blame the disorder on paid insurrectionists. We were joined by the former director of US Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE. He was the former acting director, under Barack Obama. And he told us that the administration was potentially trying to incite a reaction.
There are cities and states in California and Los Angeles in particular, one of them, that just don't want to be cooperating with ICE in terms of these immigration enforcement operations. They've passed state laws that prohibit that. But you have to work with them collaboratively, let them know that you're going to be conducting this operation, let them know what's going on, and be at least maybe adjust and tailor your plans based on their knowledge of the community. They know that this is going to cause a real reaction. This administration, of course, I think is at a minimum insensitive to those issues, and maybe some would argue even was hoping to trigger a reaction.
John Sandweg there, who was the acting head of ICE under Barack Obama in his second term. OK, so there's some context. Let's just talk about directly what we know is happening tonight. And then I want to return to this war of words. And, it's demonstrated in actions, lots of retaliatory actions between the California governor, LA mayor and Donald Trump, Harriet. But what do we know about what is happening now? Is there a danger that things will start to escalate this evening at all?
I mean, I think that is a real danger. Yes, Kate. I mean, it does often seem that it's the case that it gets worse in the evenings. Last night there was about 100 arrests. After nightfall, the Apple store in downtown LA was torched, and several other buildings were vandalized. It's often the way, isn't it, that, when night falls, this is when the real tension comes to the fore. And before then, it's often just the peaceful protesters. So I think there is the real concern. I think also the LA authorities are very worried that having the Marines there, that having the National Guard there is essentially a red rag to a bull. And, with reference to your previous guests' points, it's a perfect storm for Donald Trump, isn't it? Because it's California, which is a state, which is the real sort of bogey state for the Republicans. It's seen as liberal. It's seen as far too tolerant. It's everything that a lot of them don't like. It's Gavin Newsom, who is a very high-profile figure here, almost certainly a presidential contender for the next election. And it's the issue of immigration that Donald Trump knows is a winner for him, plus law and order, which is another Republican strong point. So for Donald Trump, this is something he's not going to let slide.
Yeah, and look, many Americans voted for Donald Trump because he promised to get tough on immigration. It now depends whether their views change, of course, not just with the immediate deportation of people with a criminal record, but also those who enter the country under a visa and have maybe overstayed their welcome, the children of people that don't have correct paperwork. There are graduation ceremonies being targeted here by ICE officials, immigration officials. So it's being conducted in a very sweeping fashion without prejudice and, sometimes for all the wrong reasons here. And many people are getting upset at what they hear as, might not be a fair hearing for Americans who are contributing to society but are undocumented, and some say illegal. It depends on the situation, depends on the definition, of course. It can get quite complicated, but it depends what limit there is. I've just noticed that Donald Trump's been speaking to the New York Post. Los Angeles rioters who burn American flags should be given an automatic 1-year jail sentence, is what Donald Trump has told the New York Post. There are varying views on his approval rating. This is quite interesting, Harriet, because we hear from one polling company, Morning Consult, that his approval rating's gone up 8 points. There are others who indicate his approval rating has gone down. I mean, is it just too tough for us to know, or is there a general consensus here on the approval ratings for Donald Trump?
Well, of course, if you ask Donald Trump, he will tell you that he has record approval rating. At certain points that has been true because he's had record low approval ratings. But I think there is some truth to the fact that there has been a slight bounce in his approval ratings. Immigration, as I said, is a big winner for him. People are generally quite happy that that his actions have really slowed the stream of people who are coming across the US-Mexico border. That's quite popular because even liberals was feeling that it was out of control when you saw those huge numbers of people, thousands of people coming across every day. So that's a real winner for Donald Trump. And his team know that. That's a real priority for them. Worth remembering that this whole situation in LA began because Stephen Miller, who's a very influential aide in the White House, he has demanded that the roundups of migrants increase from about 700 a day, which was around the level that it was during Joe Biden's administration, to up to 3,000 a day. And to get that many people, you can't just do what they have been doing, which is sort of getting people at sort of, I suppose, the low-hanging fruit, people who, when they turn up for their immigration hearings, taking those people, they actually need to start doing things like workplace raids. And that's what happened on Friday. And that's what sparked this. So I think, that there is a real sense that Donald Trump's approval ratings are perhaps rising because he is taking a hard line on this.
OK. All right. Let's talk about what else we've heard from Donald Trump today. He was joined by Pete Hegseth, his defence secretary, and gave a press conference in the Oval Office this afternoon where he threatened to forcibly put down any protests that spoil the military parade that he's got planned for his birthday this Saturday. It also happens to coincide with the 250th anniversary of the US Army's founding. Here is Donald Trump hammering home just what's in store for anyone who plans to protest on Saturday.
And we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest. But, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
There you go. And Donald Trump's birthday on Saturday. The US president will be 79 years of age. What is the general feeling about this military parade? I mean, I don't know whether it's too much of a coincidence that it corresponds with Donald Trump's birthday and the 250th anniversary of the US Army's founding. It's got to be a happy coincidence, I suppose, for Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, there's no secret that Trump loves a military parade. He wanted to do it in his first term, and he loved the sight of having the tanks rolling through Washington, D.C. But he was warned at the time that it might actually sink the swamp on which D.C. is built. So this parade is going ahead. It's going to be pretty significant. They've managed to find the reason with the 250th anniversary of the Army. They're also spending an awful lot of money on reinforcing the roads in DC to cope with these tanks going through them. It's going to cost up to $45 million to put on this parade. Also worth noting, Kate, that deploying the Marines and the National Guard in LA, that's going to cost, we found out today, $134 million for the 60 days they'll be there. So huge amounts of money being spent on this at a time when there's a lot of wrangling over the budget bill. So, people are quite alarmed, A, at the cost, but B, about what it means for the United States when you have these big displays of military might, a real sort of Red Square, North Korea type thing going on, a big spectacle. Trump loves it, but for a lot of Americans, it makes them quite queasy.
OK, let's finish up then briefly on the decision by the Trump administration today to cut all USAID overseas roles. It means the axing of thousands of staff. Just talk us through this one, Harriet.
Yeah, so this is something that is long running. When Elon Musk came in with his DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, USAID was the first on the chopping block. There have been plenty of lawsuits since then to try and preserve it. Of course, it can only be Congress that really gets rid of a department. So they're trying to work their way around it. The latest is that they will fire everybody. So it's a very sad day for all of these people who've really dedicated their entire career to humanitarian assistance in some of the poorest parts of the world. OK, look, Harriet, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it. Harriet Alexander, there, a US-based journalist.